Good morning, everybody. Town Board, can I have a motion to open the work session of October 19th?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, welcome. We are back to our budget discussions, and today welcoming our Department of Public.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I just wanted to introduce the UPW team that's here today. To my right is Julia Golden. She's our office manager. She's the glue. She's, as we discussed earlier, the brain of the operation and what keeps us all going. Also here is Tom Costello, the assistant commissioner, and Michael Sicali, the recycling foreman. I'd like to thank you for giving us this opportunity to review the budgets that are under the purview of the Department of Public Works. These budgets consist of the Highway Fund, the Consolidated Water District, Refuge District, several sewer districts, and a few small water districts. Together they account for $21 million, or approximately 43% of the entire town budget. Throughout these budgets, you will see increases for the CSCA, contractual obligations, liability insurance, utilities, and raw water purchased from the New York City DEP. We have seen some prices stabilize for asphalt, drain pipe, water treatment chemicals, and ductile iron pipe, although it appears the new high prices are here to stay. There is still volatility and long lead times associated with vehicle and equipment purchases, as well as automotive parts purchases. The current auto workers strike will certainly exacerbate these problems. I would like to acknowledge the hard work done by the Department of Public Works and mention that this past year, we paved almost 7 miles of road and oil and chip 3 miles of road. Our building maintenance department completed renovations of 2 bathrooms at Town Hall downstairs, and they're in the process of working on a third. They also assisted with overseeing the roof replacement at the Chappaqua Performing Arts Center. Our water department has been inspecting the installation of water and sewer mains at the East Village complex, Toll Brothers. They've also made 72 new water taps for services, and a typical year they do maybe 6 to 8 water taps, so they've been busy up there. Our central garage has increased proactive vehicle maintenance in order to keep our current fleet going. And recycling department has continued to operate the yard waste area, which provides mulch and compost for town residents. And this morning we'd like to start with the recycling department. Michael Sicali will start by walking us through the refuse district budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Like Bart mentioned, yard waste this year was relatively on par where it's been. COVID kind of hit us for a bump, but we've kind of seemed to level out. As you can see, our yard waste numbers, which is one of our biggest revenue generators, pretty much worse than we did last year. We actually overshot our number. We were thinking roughly 40,000, but it looks like we're gonna probably hit 40,000 this year. A lot to catch up, but we still have the leaves, which haven't fallen yet this year. We're behind, so we should shoot our number by a lot, and probably be close to where we were last year. Another big number in this is the compost. As Bart said, we sell compost and mulch to the residents. We had a better year than last year, but not by much. That season's pretty much over. We sell a little bit here and there, but we again overshot our number. But we'll just barely be above where we were last year. We'll probably end up somewhere around, as you can see, we're at 70,000 now. Maybe we'll get another $2,000 at most for that line item. So we overshot our number. But it's hard to predict that number just because it's up to residents and the weather and contractors and if they're coming in.
Do you know what percentage of residents use the compost program? I mean, maybe you don't know, but I'm wondering.
As far as at the recycling center or the yard waste area, or are you talking about ordering mulch and compost?
I guess ordering it.
Resident mulch this year sold $16,000 worth of mulch to residents, which is roughly what we do every year. Compost is always a lot less. It's probably around 7,000 to 8,000. It's $10 a yard, so I don't have the exact numbers, but it's become more popular as prices, as Bob said, has increased. Residents, once they find out about this, they jump on it because anywhere else they go, they're probably paying $22, $23 a yard. They're paying 10 plus. So as everyone tries to tighten up the bulk, their belts, they're coming to us more and more.
Because it's a source of revenue, so maybe we should advertise it more.
I generally put in a newsletter every year,
Yeah.
for probably a month and a half. I sent Lisa with a picture of mulch and compost and explain it to everybody. I'm up for suggestions if you have another place to place it. The newsletter has always been where I've gone.
Oh.
We've done it in the past.
Thank you.
For expenses,
Just wanna touch on the revenue side of things. So we had a new contract with Santa Pro 2 years ago. Next year will be the third year of that contract, and there was a significant increase with that. So Rob had put together a program where we would have increases and also draw on the fund balance. So this year there's an increase in the unit fee from $602 to $629.82. And the fund balance withdrawal went down.
Yeah, so we talked about this at the beginning of the contract and as the fund balance use would go down as the tax revenue went up, and eventually we won't have to take any more fund balance from it, but it was a way to keep under the tax cap and b a way to make it a little more palatable for the residents, because we were able to hold the rate for, was it probably almost 10 years?
yes.
And it was pretty low, was it 425, 440?
Yeah.
It's very low for many years, much less than I pay, up even in Dutchess County for private service, but unfortunately with the new contract, we've had to ramp that up a little bit, but I think it's still reasonable. We've had reasonable increases in that rate and reasonable drawdowns of the fund balance, and at the end of that, I think next year will be one more year that'll have increases and fund balance, and then probably the year after that, the fifth year we won't. So is that contract, was it a 3-year contract with 2 1-year extensions?
Correct,
Yeah.
yes. The next year is year 3.
But it was, for those who were here, it was significantly higher.
Oh, it was almost $1 million.
Yes.
38%.
And
And it wasn't like, I think they were the only people who responded to our bid.
yeah, so
Twice.
we actually went out to bid a second time because we couldn't believe the increases. And we brought down insurance requirements to see if it would make a difference, and literally it didn't.
It like less than 100,000, right?
Whatever we brought it down, the contract was reduced by that, but it was modest. Yeah, it was a stunning turn of events for us.
Any idea of what was behind that? Should we expect this to happen again next time?
Collapse of the international recycling market,
It was from China,
Uh,
right?
Also,
They
our last
stopped
contract was,
accepting
our previous
recycling.
contract was a great contract.
yeah,
You know,
and
we
it
had
was 7 years.
7-year contract and,
yeah.
no one anticipated the price increases, so.
Which our
we're
attorneys
locked
tell
into
us
it.
don't exist
But
anymore.
it wasn't just us, every
Right, right,
municipality had significant increases
You
in.
know, and my question was more, things
I think it's the future.
stabilized so that so the next time we should expect.
And the costs of, you could talk about the disposal too,
Yes.
right? I mean, we're still on revenue, but, and that's an expense, but the disposal costs have gone through the roof because it's a difficult market.
Yes, yeah, the market, and what makes it complicated further is, some of these bigger conglomerates are buying these, they're buying the dumps and they're keeping it mainly for their own customers, so they box up the little guys. And where we go is currently full, we end up having to go to additional places where we pay even more for dumping. So,
And not to be a conspiracist, I think knowing that one bid, I wouldn't be shocked if there is communication, in my view, amongst the carting companies. This is your territory, this is my territory. How we can only get one bid is just seems
And 7
odd.
years prior, we had gotten 3 bids.
Yeah, it just seems odd to me, but I don't know.
And just
Westchester
He's
District
just stating a fact, that's all.
to remind everyone, there's 2 components of that too. Santa Pro picks it up and then we have to pay to dispose of it. So there's 2 different
So that's
costs
not
associated
included
with
in
that.
the contract.
That's not included in
separate.
Santa Pro.
Moving on to our expenses, page 99. Sorry.
It's, signing out on mine, but everybody else is.
I moved on the page.
194.
As we just talked about contractual services, that is the price we pay Santa Pro for collecting our garbage monthly. Currently, we've met that number at 1.4.
This was 21, it was 1.1. And then it jumped.
That's 10 months, so we should definitely hit our number. It's roughly around 150 a month for collection. So we should be just about at our number. As you can see, we're asking for more next year, because that price will be increased by the CPI will be, the November CPI in Northeast. It's hovering around 3, so we went a little higher at the 4 just to give ourselves a little room, because I don't know what CPI for November. Currently it's at 3, but we have no indication or no way of knowing that, so we increased that by that. The transfer site charges, a couple items down, that is disposal, what we pay for actually dumping the garbage, and refuse and recycling. Again, that'll see a 4% increase. That 375,000 is for 9 months, because it's always a month behind. The service is the collection we pay for at the beginning of the month, but we can't pay for the actual disposal until the end of the month. We have the totals. So that is 9 months, but again, roughly that number around 48,000, so we should be within our number. The line item right below it is senior citizens special services. That is the fee we pay, a lot of our residents, the senior residents pay for backdoor service, and the town is a part of that bill.
Are you guys aware of that we subsidize special services for our seniors?
So seniors could sign up, and disabled people could sign up. Santa Fe offers this service to all residents. It's called backdoor service. So a smaller truck goes actually up their driveway and they pick the garbage up right at the end of their garage, and they don't have to walk it down the street. So there's residents, a lot of residents that do it, but our senior residents can sign up and get a great discount, and we pick up the rest of it. So it's a service that our seniors can manage.
Is there any benefit to us for the people who aren't seniors or disabled that we subsidize that sign up for that service? Or is that just strictly between them and Santa Fe?
Yeah, they sign up, they get a special calendar directly to them, if they have any problems, they deal directly with them.
And actually to get it twice a week pickup.
Yes,
Yeah,
because it's twice a truck.
Yeah.
They can't have the massive amounts.
They directly, and we still pay for disposal of what they take, but as far as collection, that's directly between them and Santa Fe.
We don't get any discount for
No,
fewer
no.
people needing
No.
No,
Yeah.
but it's a nice service that's offered to our seniors and also if you're disabled.
Yeah, it's wonderful for
Yeah. Especially in town of Newcastle, with a lot of very long driveways, it's something a lot of residents take. And they also like it twice a week. It's, at one point, curbside was twice a week 10 years ago. So since we're back, there's some of the step further to twice a week.
I was lucky enough to have somebody in my block who had a senior who did back to pick up, and it was wonderful. All 7 homes got serviced because they were coming down the block already.
Oh, that was nice.
Yeah, it was very nice of them. Twice a year.
It's not great for the neighbors at 6 a.m. when you hear the beep.
No, definitely
My
not.
neighbor has it
Small
twice
price
a week.
Oh, they don't
They don't
have the same time frame?
They come at 6 next to
They-
me, yeah.
They come very
They're
early.
not supposed to start at
They come
They
in the
come at
morning.
6.
You let me know.
Yeah, they're not
I'll
supposed
They
to
come at 6.
Yeah, she lives by Annandale.
That guy has complained a number
Yeah,
of
I was
times too,
gonna
and it's
say, we
kind of
definitely
behind
have-
him. They come at
Has-
6.
Are they still coming at 6?
They're still coming at
Is
6.
it across the street
Here it
at
is.
Caldwell, or is it on Annandale?
It's on Cowden,
Cowden, I'm sorry, Cowden.
but it's right next to
And
my house. Yeah, I'm like on the corner. I'll give you the address, but yeah, they come at 6.
Okay.
Because he
Once
had-
a week.
he had been complaining
Yes,
that's how we.
that's already been a problem, and I thought it was rectified, I heard,
No.
because I had one resident I was dealing with who complained a bunch of times, and I hadn't heard from her, so I was assuming everything was better, but.
Yeah, no.
So
it's
yeah,
six.
that's the other thing, is that the only way that we know that there's an issue.
Right.
And usually our residents tend to be very vocal about letting us know when something's not quite right, so.
Yeah.
It's surprising.
I will reach out to them, and if it happens again, just please reach out to me.
Yeah, so the thing is, Santa Pro is they have GPS on all their trucks,
Yes.
so they know exactly where their trucks are, how long they stop,
Right.
what time they hit it, and the whole thing, so they're very responsive, they can really give you pinpoint information, so.
I'll speak to them.
Sorry to hear that.
Okay, I'll let you know.
I let him, I skipped over his maintenance and repair. That is the number we use to fix mainly our 4700, which is our horizontal grinder, to run our yard waste area. It's also the money used to take care of our screener. We have a screener on the side of town which produces our compost. We've reduced that number with the intention of hopefully replacing the horizontal grinder. It'll be 20 years old next year. It's definitely tired. We don't use it half as much as we do, but when we do use it, generally, we have a lot of issues with it. It's a 20-year-old machine that takes a lot of physical abuse.
The residents of Chestnut Oaks are not, have use of the horizontal
Yes.
If you replace it, would it be quieter? No.
No, they're about the same.
Okay.
Unfortunately, they are about the same. Not much quieter.
And where do we see the replacement?
It's a
That would be
capital project.
Oh, got it. Okay.
It's
Yeah.
$1 million.
And we talked about that in the capital meeting. And that's why we think we're gonna be able to lower that maintenance and possibly even lower than that, right, Bart, when it's a full year under the budget.
Exactly, so we could probably lower it another $10,000.
And we're hoping that reduction will offset the debt service, or if not fully, at least partially offset the debt service associated with the purchase of that.
The other big item is diesel and gasoline. Those went down. We're trying to minimize the program to save the machine to extend its life. So that number is down. I think that's all my big items. Any questions?
The heating oil, that's not expected to go up.
No.
It's
not in the
It's
budget.
variable too, I mean, depending on when the tank was last filled, I mean, you look, in 21, we used almost 3,000, last year we used 6,100, here we're only at 2,700 this year, so,
Are rates fixed?
no,
No, but it is all state contract.
it's all state contract.
Okay.
The state contract that varies. It's not fixed contract.
Yeah, they have a website where we go and they the rate changes daily.
Same for
It's
homeowners.
it's a very good
Yeah,
rate,
it's-
so, yeah.
Same for
So, I
everyone
mean, you would
with
see a huge difference though, because we're not, the town isn't paying the taxes associated with it, and I imagine there is a volume discount built into that, so it's a significant difference from what you pay as a homeowner. Even when you go to the gas pump, the state contract's so much different.
It also sounds like it's not increasing the same.
I mean, I think we took a big bump last year, I don't think from this year to next year, I don't think we're looking at a huge one, at least not from what I'm hearing right now.
No, and it's the same thing for gas and diesel. I mean, when you see the price at the pump rise, the price rises for us, but it's much lower because we're not paying the taxes that you pay as a consumer.
All right, Mike, anything else on refuse and recycling?
You can let mine go?
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Mike also spearheads the shredder.
Oh.
At the recycling center, so those shredding days.
That's very popular.
Yes, very popular.
Yeah.
This is, November is usually we have one more left. First week of November is generally the quietest. People still show up.
And-
Early. We show up 9:15. We usually people start like around 9:15.
Wow.
So November 4th?
Yeah.
And then the last time I was there, the Goodwill bins were doing
We're working with the SAB with that currently. Goodwill's been a terrible partner from the beginning, and it's a nonprofit. There's ever-changing people there. It's hard to get an answer. Sometimes they pick the things up twice a week. Sometimes they don't come for a month. So it's frustrating to deal with them, but we've kind of gotten into a better rhythm. In August, we've been asking for new containers because our bins are all rusted and rotten and falling over. Apparently, a lot of other sites were complaining about the same thing, so they came and took them, and they were going to refurbish and bring them back. I was told a week, and that was August. So we I reached out to them a bunch of times. Bart even tried reaching out to them. We're getting nowhere. They just don't seem to care.
So are you working with staff to do textile recycling?
That's exactly what I
To
was
come
gonna
up with,
ask.
come up with another outfit that we could work with. You know, most of them are for profit, but they're apparently very, more responsive. There might be some revenue.
We tried this
Yeah.
a couple of years ago, but they required that the goodwill bins be removed. We sort of felt weird about that,
Yeah.
because they were still, people were still really using them. At the farmer's market, there's like a little bit of a
The textile.
textile recycling.
Yeah, he's there.
Is that the concern, do you know?
No. There's a textile at Take It In? Like
No,
outside?
at the farmer's market.
Okay, I'm not aware of it.
Yeah, there's a
Do
company.
they charge?
No, I don't think that they don't charge you to drop off. I don't know if they charge the farmer's
Farmer's
market to
market?
be there, but I don't think so.
No, I think that they probably pay for the space.
Which means they probably are for profit. Most of the companies are, no, I think Goodwill is the only one that's not profit.
But it's something we need to look into soon. I mean, you've been looking into it, cause the recycling center, to me, I pulled in here, it doesn't feel like the recycling center without the bins.
Yes.
And I know Michael had tried several times, I reached out to the Goodwill and I got the same response they gave Michael, which was not a great response that they're looking at it, so we probably should consider like sending them a letter, maybe even a deadline or something, otherwise we'll do something else.
Okay.
Because most of the textile companies, they do wanna be the exclusive
Yes,
site.
Yeah.
that's probably the last time, yes.
That's very unproductive of them.
Right,
I mean, it's an important program too.
yeah, it's unfortunate because it's a great site for them.
Yes.
I mean, really, they got a lot of very good
Yes.
colors that are brought in there, and it's that the fact that they're not bringing new bins to me is just.
Maybe there's some
It's
other
amazing.
local
It's
partners
surprising.
that.
So, the Katona, yeah, bring it there though, Katona Community Center. They run a really nice group.
So Mike, maybe you can look into that one too.
I'm working with this currently, we, I was trying to be understanding, like, they kept pushing me off, and at some point, I said to the guy, like, at some point, we're gonna have to go in a different avenue. And I thought that would make a difference, and he didn't seem to really, the gentleman on there didn't seem to really care.
Maybe doing him a favor.
Yeah, I don't know, and that's, with dealing with them, sometimes that's how it feels, your bins are full, there's stuff everywhere, you gotta go pick it up, and it's like, yeah, we'll get there, and it's 2 weeks later. And then they come, and then 3 days later, they come back, I'm like, bins are empty, so it's been a struggle.
Should we just add it to the list of things to ask Lena to do, start them off?
Sorry, I didn't mean to like,
Alright.
No,
budget
It's
topic,
it's an important
but
thing that we've been working with.
I've been missing it.
Yeah, and you're not the only one, I get, and I actually put that in an email, I showed Florida, I'm like, people come to the room, they're very upset, they're very
Yeah,
nasty.
no, they.
And I keep telling them next week, and now I'm like, I just tell them I don't know anymore, because,
Maybe I'll put something in the newsletter that we're working on
okay.
finding a new vendor.
That's a great
Yeah,
idea.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
Alright, why don't we move on?
Yeah,
Everyone have a nice day.
thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you so
Nice meeting
much.
you.
So the highway budget starts on page 154.
Yeah, this is really out of order. I've gone to page 73 and then 125.
For which department?
The highway,
Highway.
and that number is.
It's up from where you were.
Where is it at
Well,
PDF?
on the PDF, where?
You looking at the numbers on the bottom?
The
No, it's
154 is the number on the
Yeah.
bottom.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
The
Oh,
bottom.
yeah, 154.
it's 75 on the,
Yeah.
So a majority of the revenue for the highway fund is from real property taxes, which you see there's a 2.12% increase. Some of the other revenue is sale of equipment, that's for surplus equipment and vehicles that we've auctioned.
Cue Jeremy.
And we've been really trying to stay on top of that once something comes out of service, declare it surplus and get it auctioned off.
increase.
Looks.
Yeah, it looks good.
Mhm.
Statistically, it looks good with
It's like one more vehicle that we sell, but yeah.
Something,
Towards, the bottom of this page, there's also administrative fees for road opening permits. That's another source of revenue that we have.
How much have we got, refresh my recollection, we had Con Ed start paying those fees? When was that?
Seems around longer than 2, I think.
Yeah,
As was that, did we see a lot of dollars from them, or that kind of died out after they did the streetscape and the whatever else they did?
Without the polls, maybe 6,000 to 10,000.
right.
The polls is.
So when they've come in and done some of these large pole replacement projects, 60 poles.
Campfire.
Right, exactly. We charge them an administrative fee for each, which is $300. It used to be $200 several years ago, but we had increased the administrative fee. So they have another pole project now they've submitted for it on Vales Lane, Grace Lane, and in England.
When are they gonna do that?
We don't know.
Spring, or are they trying to do it this year?
They've submitted the road permit applications and polls they can do all year, so we've asked them, to notify us when they plan to start, we just don't know.
Police will be happy.
Yes. Other sources of revenue are the state aid that we get for paving, and that's the CHIPS, Pave New York, Extreme Weather Recovery, and the newest one is their POP, which is Pave Our Potholes program. So those are all from the state.
It's a big one.
Yes.
You're in charge of acronyms.
Oh, you need it, yes. There's also federal aid FEMA, and that was for, I think,
ECA, and maybe Ida,
a
wasn't there?
small portion of Ida, yeah, and then so with FEMA, we still have 3 large projects that are from Tropical Storm Ida that we're working on, and those are the pedestrian bridge along Quaker Road, a culvert on Byron Lake Road, and a slope that needs to be stabilized on Shooter Road.
And none of that money would go into the highway fund as revenue, those would all go straight into the capital project to offset the cost of the capital project.
And then lastly here, we also have revenue from the state and Westchester County. We have contracts with them to plow and do ice prevention on their roads within the
Do we service all of the state roads in town? We don't, right?
Not all of the state roads, all of the county roads within town we service, but the state roads we do Route 120, Route 117, and Route 128, and the state does Route 133 and Route 134. So
Keep that in the back of your mind when you get complaints, what streets you're getting complaints on, It's usually not us.
they've been better this state the years past. I want to see a difference.
We'll see, we didn't have that much snow last year, we'll see what happens this year.
We're hoping for another mild winter.
That's not what I heard.
So then the expenses start on page 157. At the top there's salaries, the overtime, longevity pay. The overtime is storm dependent. We have had years where we've went way over when we've had Tropical Storm Ida or Isaias and storms like that.
And what's the increase in the part-time?
So our part-time staff have been a tremendous help. So we want to increase what we're doing with our part-timers during the summer. Some years we've had 2, this past year we had 3 people.
Does that limit, how much does that impact your overtime?
It doesn't really. I mean, we have a lot of people taking vacation in the summertime, so having generally the part-time within highway is seasonal. They're here during the summer.
And there's also some administrative, or does that come out of the
that comes out of the
aid fund.
DPW administration. The departmental equipment, there's money here for a hot box that we use for asphalt work when we're doing potholes and patching jobs. So that allows us to effectively do that work in the winter time. The asphalt plant that we use for most of the year is up in Bedford, and they close early in December. And there is a plant that's in the Bronx that's open all year. So we go down there with the hot box, and that keeps the material warm throughout the day. So that's a critical need for the department.
So you don't have one or replace one?
We have one, it's getting old, so this would be a replacement one.
Like
It's 10 years old. The one we have is also, it's on a trailer. And due to the weight of it, you need a special license, a Class A license. Limited in that, we only have a few people within the highway that have that title and license. So the new hot box that we're planning to get is a slide-in hot box that would go in the back of a dump truck, and most of our staff would be able to drive that. So that will increase our flexibility and also a sign for them.
Great.
The vehicle that we have here is a van that we're planning to purchase, an electric van for our electrician.
Electric van for the electrician.
Yes, so that's what's planned.
By the way, we tried to get the grant to cover this, one of the same grants, but you have to use it has to be a heavy duty electric machine. This didn't follow.
So I'll point out to the board, we talked during Ike's budget session the other night. He had a couple pieces of equipment, and these two are gonna fall into that. I'm assessing the end of 2023, the financial results, and it looks like right now we'll probably pull this out of the 24 budget, and we'll be able to pay for it at the end of this year. If you look back up in that revenue line, we had about 50,000 from FEMA.
Yeah, a little more.
That wasn't budgeted, so there's a little excess there. We had some money coming in from, I think, to pay of our potholes. We weren't aware of that last year at budget time. Extreme winter recovery is hit and miss. It has been the last few years, but they don't guarantee it, so it's not something that we budget. So we have some excesses on the revenue side, and the expenses look good, so just gonna do one last assessment and probably give Bart the word to pull that out. So when I talked about there was some decisions I would give to the board and show the budgetary impact of those after all these meetings, that will be one of them that you'll see on it.
Most of the remaining items on this page are flat from last year to this year. There's $1 million for road paving. Again, maintaining that level of funding for the paving is essential to improving the condition of all the roads.
Don't be thrown by the 17,766 for this year's actual, it just means that there's a lag in some of the payments going through, but the money's been spent.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, it has. And some. That line, the road paving, and just to jump ahead, you'll see it on a few pages, but the permanent improvements, we kind of combine them based on what types of improvement we're making to the road, but that's $425. So we're at $1.425 million for road paving, and Lisa, in your last year of doing budgets, and Jeremy was a big part of this too. In the beginning, there were years that we paved, what, 100,000?
Yeah.
It's not during our,
Not at all,
No.
not at all,
We have
prior
been
to.
steadily increasing, and to the board's credit, they really.
And without
I
exceeding
think
the
like our
cap,
first year in, we increased it
We
to
did.
like $1 million, my first year.
steadily,
It was
it
steadily.
was because
Yeah.
we had to get, because of the tax cap, it wasn't like we could throw it all in there at once, so we're now, unfortunately, the costs have risen too, but 7 miles is
Pretty fabulous.
Pretty good.
what were we doing
Yes,
for
thank
chips back then? Has it really gone up that much in 10 years?
It has, yeah, chips used to be like
In the twos.
$225,000.
Yep.
I remember those years as a resident, those roads
Oh, yeah.
were awful,
Yeah.
and I remember all the complaints.
They still have, they still.
Yeah, I mean,
Still
the
good.
problem was we were behind for many years and we were never really able to do one giant catch up, so we've just had to go slow and steady, but I think we're on a good maintenance phase right now.
And another quick question, when you, those dollars don't go to fixing, part of my ignorance, the sides, if there's not the culverts, but if there's drainage issues, that's a separate fee? Like, before you fix a road, you may have some,
Right, so we have a drainage line that is $25,000, that's for materials for that,
so that's solely dedicated to the roads that need,
drainage work, which we do beforehand, but
when you pave them or just in general?
for both. Yeah, and the permanent improvements, we can use that for other stuff, so this year, we did a large paving program, but we do have some funds left over, so we're gonna be doing some guide rail work, so that we'll take out of the permanent improvements. We have a little bit of money left over, about $40,000.
You got the lay of the land figured out?
There's guide rails around town that need to be fixed and replaced, so we'll be doing that.
No.
With the remainder of those funds, so the permanent improvements, typically we've used all of that for paving, but sometimes we'll take a portion of that for other work.
When you do a road like Hates Cross, which is such a windy road, was that just a paving project or was that a drainage
Hates Cross
project?
is different.
Right, yeah, so we did drainage work on there, in preparation, we also did asphalt patching and then we did oil and chip with
Is the
fiber mat.
extra gravel off of the road?
Yes, yeah,
There
we
was
some
issues, yeah.
we swept the road twice and the loose stone signs are, gravel signs are removed. And we haven't had any calls in several weeks.
That was typical, oil and shit, that you get those
That's to
kind
be
of gravel.
expected, yes, yeah, I mean, if people haven't been through the process before,
Yeah.
it's new to them, and they think that's what they're gonna be left with,
Right.
and what you have now, if you drive down the road, is very different than what was in the days that followed.
One other quick question, I'm sorry, like old Roaring, is it
I
Old
was
Roaring?
just going to ask about that stretch that's
But they
nothing,
want, I think the residents like it
They
that way,
want it
as I understand.
they don't want it to be a cut through,
Right.
but
Well,
it's
we have-
horrendous.
Is there, so my question is that, is that maintained in a way to fill dirt, to fill holes, even if they don't wanna have it paved?
So we have a half mile of dirt road left in town, we have 105 miles of road in total. And we do maintain that, it's work, we're out there, especially after the heavy rains, we'll get holes in it, we go out with the machine, the loader, and smooth it out as best we can.
And they wouldn't
You know-
want oil and chip, that wouldn't be.
We're not allowed to, because
It's in a wetlands right there, right?
right, because of the wetlands, and that's, it's like some of the roads, oil and chip is probably one of the most contentious roads, you have residents on both sides of that, ones that would love to see it paved, and ones that,
I lived there for years.
ones that do not want to see it paved at all,
Yeah,
so.
I thought
So-
most residents wanted oil and chip. But anyway, let's not get into
Yeah,
it.
yeah, we have,
Let's not get into it.
So the unpaved section that is a town road and the residents have been able to make the decision not to have it paved? Oh,
The residents don't make a decision
Oh,
on the, on.
It's cause it's a
on
wetland,
roads.
they can't.
right, yeah, so it's has to be.
Okay.
We have pushed the envelope as far as we can.
Okay.
Oil and chip.
It's not a choice,
Right,
it
oil
is,
and
we
chip.
just can't, okay.
And pavement are both considered impervious surfaces due to the wetlands there, we can't do either of
Okay.
those surfaces there.
Oil and chip.
But despite that, we still get calls both ways.
Yeah,
When Harriet showed us that, she was very active in reminding us that it was in the wetlands and that we could not be taking a portion of it. But I have to tell you that section of dirt road, manpower hours, is a tremendous drain.
that's what I
Yeah,
was trying to
tremendous.
read it.
And the last time that we did pave the road, we actually slightly shrunk the dirt portion. And even with that, we had several residents who were very adamant that they wanted us to remove the pavement that we had.
We had violated the wetlands, it was just.
So I know Bedford tends to use the
They have like 40
roads kind of
miles of dirt
traffic
road.
calming, right?
Yeah.
And it's cross country, so versus like.
And they're the same challenges, I
Yeah.
guess, with the
Very
grades
difficult
and the maintenance.
to maintain it.
And then towns like that, they also have a road grader, which is a specialized piece of heavy equipment that goes out and it goes out continuously to shape the roads.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Tangent, but
Probably the biggest issue for residents is, or one of the biggest issues for residents.
Everybody wants that view, just paved asphalt, nobody wants to be inconvenienced or to smell it or anything else, but they're happy with some.
So you'll see at the bottom of the page, there's a rental expense. From time to time, we rent equipment that we don't own to do specialized projects. Occasionally, we'll need a larger excavator, or this past year, we actually rented a special track mower to mow the brook back. That was our task, and the goats had their work in the brook.
Too close to the tracks for the owners.
Page 159, that's the permanent improvements that we were talking about. Typically, we use most of that for paving, but from time to time, we use some of those funds for other road work projects. On page 160 begins the 5130 expense lines. These are associated with the central garage where all of the town equipment is maintained. So the departmental equipment of $10,000, we have slated to buy a new machine to charge the air conditioning on newer vehicles. They've changed the Freon. It used to be R12, then it was R134, and now it's something else. So with each of these changes, we need to get new equipment. But the benefit is the new Freon is supposed to be better for the environment.
What percentage of our equipment is housed during the months that it would need protection from the elements? And I know that's something that we've obviously been working on for some time, very specifically, but
Housed inside
yeah,
in a
or
building,
covered in some way.
less than 20%.
That's why I'm
We're hoping
Working
to
on
improve
it.
that number significantly.
jumping
Yeah.
forward.
Right, so what would that do with Corwin Lake? In terms of number of percentage of our equipment,
Right, I think we're figuring we could probably fit about 10 trucks inside of that building.
and that would equate to what percentage of our?
That would probably add, another 20%.
Are there any, is there a way to
Yeah,
build
probably
structures?
less, sorry, probably like 10 or 15%.
Is there places to build, assuming you could, are there places to build structures, and is that something that's economically feasible?
I don't think it's economically feasible.
That was one of the reasons we went after the Joan Corwin Way, because I don't think we have a ton of land or even places to build, but building it, we had a building, we had a place of land and we had it, it's right there next to the DPW.
That was a great location.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's in between the two town properties and parks. It's
That's it,
center and
nothing else.
DPW.
That process, although it's moving very slowly, is actually still moving. So,
We haven't heard much recently.
yeah, we've been talking to Nick about it. He actually had a communication with Bart yesterday about taking the property by the end of the year. The issue is that it was just a tree lot that's been using it for log storage. And Bart didn't think there was an issue if we were to take it, subject to that being removed going forward. I just wanna make sure that we don't end up
With logs.
with those ton of logs and then having to dispose of them ourselves. It's gonna be very expensive, and I just wanna know how we ensure that we don't get stuck. Let's just tree life walks away and, I want the bills there.
Sell firewood.
Right, exactly, that's why we'd rather take it even, I don't wanna wait until all the logs are
I
gone.
know. We're afraid we won't be able to get on the property.
are they in the process of removing the logs now, or,
They come and they go, and it's,
I mean, are they adding to the pile, or?
I would say overall it's about the same, maybe a little bit less. Except they bring them in.
I feel like we're getting off on a
Yeah,
tangent,
yeah.
we need to,
Sorry.
we need to move this forward.
Sorry.
So vehicle maintenance and repair, there's a slight drop there. This year, we had replaced the dump bodies on 3 of our Mason dump trucks. And next year, it will only be 1 Mason dump body that we have to replace, so that's the change there. And then the tires are up 20%, that's just an increase in the cost of tires. And on page 161, see there's an increase in the cost for oil, grease, and lubricants. And that's an increased cost of materials, plus we've been trying to be more proactive with the maintenance to keep our fleet going. And the sweeper repairs are just a cost increase that we've seen in the parts to keep the sweepers going properly. On page 162, one of the big items here is the brush and tree work. That is something that has gradually increased over the years as well. So that's at $185,000 for next year.
That's been increasing because there's been more to do, or just the cost of doing it?
There've been more to do. We have been doing more tree work. Our contract with Olmsted, that's who we have a contract with now, does expire the end of July next year. So we'll have to go out to bid. We've exhausted all of our extensions with that. So we're hoping that the price will remain stable.
And the Upper Minkle Dam inspection, the $55,000, that's due to the increased monitoring that we've had to do until we're able to take the dam down. So that expense will go away once we finally take the dam down.
How is that coming? Is that?
Another really slow process, but you will be seeing on the next agenda, your intention to become lead agency for the secret process, which is another precursor
Love
to us being able to remove the two.
Actually, that's the practice area. Criminal defense and secrets, I've done so much of it.
Alright.
Yeah, you're pretty
Alright, on page 163 begins the 5142 lines. These are for snow removal. We'll buy a piece of equipment next year. We'd like to get another liquid brine spreader. That's what the $20,000 is for. Our salt is at the same level, so the price per ton for salt did go down slightly this year, which is good news. And we also have a very good supply on hand because of the mild winter last year.
Can we arrange for ride along this year again? With the tower?
If you'd like, sure, yeah, we have,
They're fun. You guys ever
yeah, so we
ride
did,
in a fly?
yeah.
I'd be interested too.
We stopped in 2020 with COVID.
The COVID response,
We
right?
had a snowstorm and anybody would like to ride along with our ride out. Okay. We'll
Yeah.
arrange for that.
We don't even drive the trucks, we swear.
Just to.
I don't think he gets the track.
I don't wanna take out any mailboxes or cars.
That kind of wraps up the highway department budget. Are there any questions?
Pretty straightforward.
Like to,
Thank you for all you guys do on the roads. We got really nice roads there.
we'll make sure everybody knows we have a big group of people that are dedicated.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Water, so that's page 174.
That's the usual 120.
Or actually 175, the next page. So starting with the noticed that is property taxes, that has been flat for 10 years.
Since I've been running the budget.
A very, very long time.
Yeah, because of the tax cap, we haven't really been able to move that number. The water fund is one of the few funds that we actually have a significant revenue source outside of taxes, which is the sale of water. So that's why we've seen over the years, rather than raise the taxes, we've incrementally raised the rates on water consumption. So we're kind of putting the burden more on the users and the higher users of the water than just the tax base in general.
And with that being said, I will note that the water revenues for the water sales is really like a best guesstimate, because a lot of this is dependent on how much rain we get. A significant portion of this can be attributed to irrigation, and when we get a lot of rain, people don't water their lawns, so water sales are down.
About how much does it?
During the summertime.
No, I mean like, from year to year, how much variation do you tend to see?
It really depends on how much rain we get.
If you look over 10 years, hundreds of thousands of dollars throughout the years. It's almost impossible to guess how much water you're going to use. You can't take any 2 years. We have some really big users like the Hudson Hills, like the county with the Hudson Hills Golf Course. That bill can be in the summer over $100,000 a month, or it could be down as low as $30,000 or $40,000 a month. So
The less rain, the better for us financially.
Yeah, no, I understand that piece of it. I was just wondering how much it's typically swing, like, 10%.
And the offset though is, yes, the revenue's down, but the expenses will go down too, because the cost of providing that. You'll be using less chemicals, you'll be buying less raw water, you have less excess per capita costs, et cetera. So, it's not a one for one, but it is.
Yeah, and we just wanted to mention to the board, so a couple things. So we've gotten a number of complaints, and this happens traditionally in the early fall. Our billing for water lags. So people are receiving bills now for June, July, August. And with the irrigation system, with people's pools, the water bills can be shocking. The other thing that we're finding is that people don't necessarily know or are caring for their irrigation systems properly, so that they don't know when they have a leak before they get their bill, and they're looking at thousands of dollars of water usage. So at Rob's suggestion, we actually went through our archives of articles in the e-newsletter, and we will be asking Lisa to include in upcoming e-newsletters just notes about, do you know how much a running toilet costs you? You have to jiggle the handle a little bit and still hear it. How much does it actually cost you when you don't properly fix that? How much is a pinhole leak in your irrigation system cost you? You'd be shocked at the amount of water that's wasted and the amount of money.
Someone come in last year, I think their bill was like $100,000 or more.
The one was $30,000.
Yeah, $30,000.
But that's unfortunately.
That's a quarter.
Yeah.
That's a quarter.
And we're seeing
it again.
some of these, and the problem is, once you see the water, I mean, Bart can attest to this, if you see water where there shouldn't be water on your property, it's too late. If it's to the point where it's come through the ground and now and it's visible, you're looking at a significant cost, so.
Okay, and let's just put that, it's too late in quotes, it's never too late to take it fixed, at least, but you've
Getting the bill.
you've already incurred a fabulous bill that's coming forward. So just a reminder to our residents that when you put your irrigation system to bed for the winter, that it really does need to be blown out, that there's care that you need to take, because those pipes you shut your hoses, but the water that's still sitting in those pipes expands, with the icing, and they're gonna burst, and you are the very unhappy recipient of an extraordinary tax bill, water bill, and it's people call up, they're mad at us. We didn't do it, we didn't do it. But more importantly, if we could just send out the notifications. So what we're gonna do is, we're gonna try to send these notifications out, Leslie said to include it in the newsletter, in the spring and in the fall. And also we'll put it in our annual
Water.
mailings,
Yeah.
just to sort of, even if we can catch a couple of people that they understand that there's a process, just because you don't see the pipes underground doesn't mean that they're not there and doesn't mean that they're not gonna cost you much.
Well, there's actually a remind them about winterizing too.
And so another question related to it, there's no way to monitor anything that looks.
There
Yeah,
are
that-
private things that you can do, you can buy devices that,
Yeah, but that's for our system, not.
yeah, I mean, a homeowner can buy, there's certain devices they can buy that help with leaks, right?
Right.
Leak
Right.
detectors
So
and
the
We
device
can't
they
put
would
the
put-
onus on our water department to be
No,
checking
that's
for
not-
everybody else.
No, that's not at all what I was asking. I don't know how they get read if there's like a computer system that can flag something if it's.
Well, we're not there yet. That's probably what we're gonna ultimately come to the board at some point as a capital upgrade, but there is a fixed meter system that we could better monitor systems, but it requires the replacement of all the meters in town. We've already started that years ago, but
And we do also proactively check high water bill, right?
we do. I mean, listen, it's
But by the time it gets that high, it's already that high.
Yeah, but some of these people would not be aware of that except for the, right?
yeah, so I mean, it's a great collaborative process between my office and Julia and Mark down at DPW and with Chris Lupo with the water people. We're all working together to try to save every resident whatever we can, and when we catch it coming on a list, if it's a certain percentage over, but it's a manual process, so it
Right.
requires somebody to go through and look, and is that over that percentage, and so usually.
Yeah, so there's no automated.
No, and we try to contact them when we
It's
can.
almost an house on,
Right,
it counts, so you're something to highest.
Yeah.
Somewhere I had lived before, we had an unusually large.
Alright, we kinda need to move this along.
Yeah.
We're gonna be here
After
forever. But these are all very good questions and I'm sure Bart would love to have a meeting at some point.
Yeah, sure.
Well, I mean, that does go to the number, so.
So also on revenue, there's a hydrant rental, that's from the fire districts that pay us to maintain the hydrants and for their use of them. And that's a 1% increase, that's contractual. You'll see on the sale of taps, that's down to $10,000. That's come down substantially because, as I mentioned, the Toll Brothers, majority of their taps have been done. They've actually all been paid for. They're just waiting to put in the rest of their water main to complete those.
So that won't, that won't
Right.
go up next year either.
Right.
It's back to normal.
Correct, yeah. The fund balance, Rob, I don't know if you want to touch on that before we move into the expenses.
Yeah, just the water fund is one of the funds over the years that has traditionally had a healthy fund balance. So we've been drawing down, and again, because it's such a hard target, we try to budget conservatively such that we would maybe have a little surplus every year. Some years we do, some years we don't. So the fund balance, I don't wanna say it's a placeholder, it's kind of an offset. If we far exceed our numbers, then we're not gonna use the fund balance. If we don't reach our numbers, we'll have to use the fund balance, so that's also kind of a moving target. And I'll point out too, were you gonna talk at all about the Pleasantville revenue?
I was just gonna touch on that for a few.
Yeah, well, okay, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, on page 178, you'll see that's the last page of revenue before we get to expenses. There's two items from Pleasantville, one is fixed and one is variable. So Pleasantville is a joint owner of the Millwood Water Treatment Plant. The fixed costs you see here, those are the costs basically to keep the plant open and operating. That covers a portion of the staff there, which is contract operations with Veolia, and all of the equipment that's within the plant, and the variable revenue that's based on their taking of water, and the components in the variable line are the raw water we pay New York City DEP for, and also water treatment chemicals and electricity. Those costs are all variable depending on the amount of water that's used.
And the board may remember, it was just a couple of weeks ago, so what we do is we true up at the end of every year the costs that are apportioned to Pleasantville. We take the revenue that they've actually paid from the prior year, the costs that are attributed to Pleasantville. If there's a deficit, we ask them for the money to make up that difference. The last couple of years, there's been a surplus, so we return that money to Pleasantville. I had, maybe it was a month or so, we just finished that process for 2022, so we reconcile that every year.
Great, so page 179 begins the expenses. See under departmental equipment, there's $35,000, that's allocated for a new air compressor that the water department needs. We use that to run the jackhammers and some of the pumps we have are air operated when we have water main breaks. There's $45,000 for a vehicle, that's for a pickup truck. We do have a truck that we ordered last August, over a year ago, that still hasn't arrived yet. You'll see down that tap materials, that's down 75%. That's because we don't need to purchase as many materials. So again, those taps are mostly done. And mains and service line materials is down as well. So that's a lot of that is ductile iron pipe. The price for that did stabilize, and we have built up a healthy inventory down at our yard for that. At one point, there was a very long lead time to get that material. It was over a year, so we had to purchase a significant amount to make sure that we had an adequate supply on hand. And now we can kind of pull back on that.
Bart, do you want to just talk for a second, the excess per capita, explain what that is?
Sure, so the excess per capita is paid to the New York City DEP. As part of the water rates with DEP, we're allowed a certain gallons per person per day. This is calculated every month, so they take the number of people that are in the city and they divide that by the amount of water used, and that's how they come up with the amount of water that we're allowed to take for each person per day. And this was readjusted in 2020 when the census was redone. But if we go over that amount of water, then it's considered excess per capita, and they bill us at a rate that's like 50% higher for the raw water. It's a substantial increase in the rate.
Yeah, so that typically happens anywhere between April and probably September. And on a dry year, most of those months. On a wet year, not many of those months. But this excess per capita, that's one of the reasons we have tiered water rates, is because in the summer when people are using irrigation or filling pools, we're paying a higher rate for that. So they, in turn, those residents will pay a higher rate for that.
Yeah. The calculation that they make. Are most municipalities kind of in line with that? Right, like are we normal for having this line item?
Oh, I mean, I imagine we would be higher than somewhere with smaller lot sizes.
Right, yeah, so like we have
Scarsdale or something that has smaller lots.
Pleasantville's numbers, I know for years they didn't hit excess per capita at all. And now, like the past year or two, they have been, but only going over it a little bit, not as much as we exceeded.
You know, the other thing is that like Bedford, if there are wells, then they're not gonna be wells.
Yeah.
Because ours is municipal water. We run into this from.
Yeah, we have very few residents on wells, right?
Right, yeah, but they're not included
They're not
in that
included.
number. So New York City
Right, yeah.
DEP is very strict about how they do this, and it's quite a process to redo the population count because those areas are excluded, so they don't just take the population of 8,000, they have to go through all of the areas. It's
Rob, how much is the increased revenue from the tiered rates relative to offsetting the higher
Yeah, I mean,
access per capita?
it's all a function of the entire budget, so, we raised rates last year. They said that the lowest tier, I think, is up to 6,000 cubic feet, which is, the family of four typically wouldn't hit that, in a quarter. Then the next tier is 6,000 to 10,000, and then above 10,000. And if you're using above 10,000, you're definitely using irrigation, you're definitely filling a pool or something like that. That's not just a residential user.
most of the other lines are pretty stable. There is an increase in vehicle maintenance and repair line again. Some of the parts have gone up, the cost there. Special projects, there's an increase there. This line covers inspections of the water storage tanks, and it also covers a company we have, Pro, that inspects the cathodic protection system that we have on the water tank. So next year, we are due to inspect the small alpine water tank. Each tank is inspected every 5 years. So we have a company that comes in. They actually they disinfect, and they have a little remote operated vehicle that goes in the tank and do a video of the whole tank. They do the exterior as well.
Age, it's like 100 years old, right?
The oldest tank is the large alpine tank, and that was built in 1932, so it's 91 years old. On page 183 begins the 8330 lines, and these are directly associated with the village water treatment plant. In the middle of page 183 is the equipment section, and most of these lines have been dropped, and that's just a function of looking back at the historical purchases and trying to refine the budget so that we're closer in line with those. We have a little bit of excess cushion there, so that's been addressed. And then there's variable cost, Pleasantville. And these numbers are dependent on the amount of water that's used. Same with the next page 184, the top there, that's variable cost for Newcastle. And that is a reflection of the water that's used.
And we get reimbursed for the Pleasantville cost, correct?
Yes. And then it gets into the lines that are associated with operating the plant for printing, publishing, departmental supplies, books, lubricants, instrument materials, filter plant materials, boiler service. The next page continues into ozone system maintenance. And there are 3 ozone generators at the Millwood Water Treatment Plant. They are approximately 10 years old. We have been doing a major maintenance overhaul on one ozone generator each year. This year, the second one was done, so next year, the third ozone generator will be completed, so that the following year, this number will be able to be reduced. Next line there is another big one, is standby generator service, and that's for the rental generator that we have on site since the other generator failed. We were able to reduce that cost by switching the rental generator from Caterpillar to Cummins. We we saved about $10,000 a month. And what's here would cover 5.5 months of renting that generator. We're hopeful that it will be out of there. We will have a new generator in place and functioning by the end of May. So the contractual services line, that's for Veolia. They staff and operate the plant. And under engineering services, there's $35,000. We're planning to issue an RFP next year to have a firm look at adding a treatment process at the filter plant. That would be a Roxxon advanced oxidation process. That would give us flexibility for if we have to go on the propane water supply. When we had to do that a couple of years ago, we had some taste and odor issues, so we would take care of those. Typically, we don't have to use that water source, so this isn't urgent, but it's something that we want to look at to enhance the capability of the water treatment plant. And you'll also see down at special projects, there's an increase there, and that's to fund the SCADA system upgrade, and that was just approved the other night at the town board. The rest of the lines are pretty much flat. I don't know if there's any other questions on the water. So next we could get into the public works section, which starts on page 109. So this cover the salaries for the DPW administration. And there is an increase in the request for part-time help. But once again, we found the part-time employees to be extremely valuable. We have one in our office, unfortunately, will be leaving probably in December, so we'll be looking for somebody to replace that position. And a lot of the work that's done there, we've been working on our water service line inventory, and also improving our compliance with the backflow prevention device inspections for residents that have those. That's the annual requirement to have their device inspected, and the results need to be submitted to us. Substantially improved our rate on that. The lines below are all pretty much flat. That's just equipment to run the office. The GIS maintenance is down slightly. We implemented a program that we're using called iWork, and that has been implemented now. These are just ongoing costs for that software, so that has come down slightly. Turn to page 111. This is our building maintenance department, and the funds they use for town hall to maintain the building here. So as I mentioned at the beginning, they've done a couple bathrooms. They're continuing with another one upstairs. We'd like to do another one this year, or coming up in 2024. There's some floors that could be replaced in the lobbies, carpet in the police department. Under special projects, There's also money set aside there for the elevator. The elevator is in need of upgrade, and that's gonna be approximately $30,000.
I don't know what the percentage increase of $5,000 is, but it's
Off the chart.
Or just
Off the
showing a
charts.
bunch of stars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just was,
if you have to ask, it's too high.
Yeah.
It's like if you see the water on your lawn, it's
On page 112, these are the lines for maintaining the DPW facility. There also is a line for train station maintenance. So the restrooms in there are public restrooms, so from time to time we have to go in there and take care of a backup or something. There's also wood on the outside of the train station that was redone. There's a couple sections where it starts to show some deterioration. We need to replace those as well.
sorry, where is that?
It's train station. So it's
Oh, it's just under general
train
transportation.
station maintenance.
It's not renovation, got it.
There was the renovation line that's there, that was for a property that was held being maintained by the town.
Like
We were able to,
Okay, that makes sense,
yes.
okay.
Page 114, that's more, it's at the DPW. Wraps up that, and then we have the sewer districts. Those are pretty much stable and flat from year to year. The only one note I would say is S6, that's the Pine Bridge sewer district. We have a lift station there that Veolia operates that, so there is an increased contractual services line there for them. All of the other sewer districts are maintained by town staff. That's the only one where we have an outside company.
Sorry, Bart, I lost you where we are.
On the sewer districts,
Just getting in general.
Depending on.
so they start on page 221.
I think, Bart, the only thing to really, anything of note with the sewer districts, as he's mentioned, most of them are stable. We've added a sewer district this year. Talked about that the other night when we were talking about special districts. This is the northern sewer district up at Chappaqua Crossing. We've included a small amount to kind of get a placeholder in there. We need to begin taxing this district for the operation and maintenance of the new sewers up there. So this is a new district, S9, to this year of the budget.
Question on that, if the residents there are gonna be paying to that district to, it takes a year and a half to fill that property.
Yep.
Do they divide that amongst the active units there, or do we the excess?
No, it's whoever is the property owner of record is doing tax on that. So if it's still the developer, if it's still Toll Brothers, they'll kind of get a tax concessions.
There's a few small water districts that we take care of as well. Those are the Newcastle Water District, Birch Drive, and then Croton Avenue Highway 241 is Birch Drive.
Yeah, not much movement in any of those districts.
Yeah, I think the only one is high risk, right?
Yeah.
That's on page 250.
Yeah, so we did drop the taxes in that district a little bit, because we ended up having a surplus, so we borrowed money. What year did we borrow for that? Or did we install that?
2050. Longer than that.
Longer than that.
Yeah,
I was still
2011.
down, I was still down.
11, you think?
Yeah. So, the High Ridge Water District was a new district back then. We installed some water main up there. We borrowed money for it. And the property tax component was to pay back the debt service associated with that. Over the last 10 years or so, we have accumulated a small fund balance in that district, so we've kind of cut back the property tax component of that. We're still able to pay the debt service.
So that district had been serviced by non-fiscal, and our residents were subject to pretty high out of district water rates. So because it was contiguous to our water system, we were able to take it, basically reclaim it.
And poor water pressure too, right?
Terrible water pressure at the top of the hill,
And terrible water quality.
Yes.
Of course, yeah.
the trifecta.
The last one is the lighting district, which is on page 213.
You don't have much to do, Bart, do you?
So far, it's just on for now.
And again, this is relatively flat. There is an increase in the property taxes. There hasn't been one in a very long time.
And that's the only real expenditures out of this fund are the utility costs, and those have gone up sharply, so that's why we've seen a little bit of a property tax increase there.
So these are like almost street lights.
Yeah.
And most of them, if not all, are LED now, right?
Yes, most of them are. There's a few left in the train station parking lot that are on the list here.
That's been huge for us, because we were constantly replacing out.
Yeah.
Music burned out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked when I was out before my house.
They were constant. As soon as they were like, you're just around the side town, back to the side town.
Anything else, Bart?
That's all, unless there's any other questions for us.
Any questions?
Thank you again.
Thank you guys.
Yes, no,
You're welcome.
Guys,
thank you.
you're
Thanks to Tom, Julia, and all of our staff.
You guys are amazing,
Truly,
you know, for
truly,
their
truly,
plan. And your response time to residents has been amazing, so thank you. And we get a lot of.
Bart, you're always
A lot of
so, you're always
questions.
so volatile, you're always so excitable. It's just shocking.
I know, he flies off the handle.
I know. I think for all you're doing, you're like,
Learn from Jerry Marshall.
And thank you for going to residents even in person when they're really concerned about something.
Yeah, we try, we're
Really
always
do incredible work.
available.
you are great.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Sadly, every time we reach out, it's a complaint from somebody.
What's
So
that?
sadly, every time we reach out, it's a complaint, there's
That's
something
not
going
true,
on.
that you guys were so kind to stepping down pieces.
Yeah, well, that's-
Yeah, it was really,
We get emails from time to time, yeah, folks, it's better, but sometimes people take the time, and that's really appreciated, it really helps encourage people and kind of, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Should we check and see if you can comment on it?
Sure.
What's that?
I like that you worded it.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
But run we build in enough time in the schedule to talk about what's relevant.
Who's next? I left my.
Chief, that's all we have today is the chief.
So let me steal a couple seconds that I've got you. I had sent the board an email regarding Code Red and Civic Plus.
Yes.
Thoughts? Are you okay with switching over? It's gonna be a lot.
Cost, how much, what's the cost difference, but yes, I am.
Yeah.
In the first year, it's about 4,000, I think, and then it goes up to maybe 6,000 or 7,000.
If it's gonna be a lot easier for us from a technical perspective and a lot more functional, I think we should do it. It's not that much of a.
Code Red is antiquated, they've made no
Yeah.
improvements in the
10
10 or 12 years that we've been using it, and the mapping capability, it's difficult to target specific neighborhoods when you're trying to send an email.
Yeah, I think the
We
residents
saw a
feel
demo
that,
of the new one, and it's very,
No,
it's not
it
responsive.
seemed like you laid it out pretty clearly, that the advantages.
and it's on the platform that we have our website on, Civic Plus, so it integrates with the website, it will send, the alerts will go straight to the banner on top of the website, so.
And the police department should be able to use it also, right? Are we gonna
Yeah,
move
they're
Nick's
actually, you
over
can
to
ask the
that?
chief about it, he's not ready to
Switch
move yet.
over,
We also would like to make sure that Civic Plus does everything it says it's gonna do
Yeah.
before we throw our eggs in that
Cause
basket.
I know he's not so happy with Nixle because people are all of a sudden not getting text or they're getting
I feel like,
emails and not,
maybe I'm wrong, I seem to feel like I'm not getting
I'm not getting them either.
I'm
I'm
not.
getting
I'll
your
get the email, but not the text.
Yeah,
I
so-
get the North Castle, I get
I get York.
Yorktown.
So I don't really know what the deal is, so what we're going to end up doing with Civic Plus is we are going to, if it's okay with you guys, and you're good to go with it, we will take and this is actually a cost that's gonna be funded through
Yeah, so
NCCMC.
NCCMC is gonna pay for it, and then we will end up getting charged back on the quarterly,
bill.
Yeah.
From it, because we don't wanna, if we have the email and text, we're subject to FOIA.
Yes.
NCCMC is not. So this setup actually works for our residents because it means that we're not in a position of being required by the meaning by FOIL to take and disclose all those lists.
Oh, good.
I mean, there are
That's a privacy
exemptions.
protection.
Yeah, you know, you don't have to give it to someone who's asking you to like for a startup business, but for Joe Blow who would like a full list, that's actually why we left Nixle. We had been on the same Nixle platform for police years ago. And we were subject to FOIA, we thought, oh, this will never work, our residents will never impart this key information to us. And then we read everybody's section. Anyway. So we would love to be able to take and do like a launch, our Code Red contract expires December 16th. So if we can start introducing the fact
We have
that
to notify them like very shortly,
yeah, we have,
right?
yeah, so I just wanna make sure
Yeah.
it's good with the board, it'll be in our next budget, but we're gonna have to do a contract with Civic Plus, we've got a meeting with them later this week.
Next week, I hope.
And we'll have, you know, we'll be good to sign on with them, and then we'll do our launch, we'll notify Code Red in writing, and we'll launch this. We're excited about it, so great, that's first.
Everyone in favor?
Yes.
Yes, okay, great, thank you very much. Second thing has to do with Barton and the Judas. So, Lee Jones from Barton and the Judas has been our lead consultant for the chat line. She gave a wonderful presentation to the school board in work session the other day to go through it. It's great. We're not under contract with them for the chat line anymore though. So when she takes and preps and upgrades the updates the presentation and then spends time reviewing it and then comes to the meeting, she's not getting paid and that can't be a thing. So I will be presenting the board with it's rather a large not to exceed, it's $25,000, but they're just envisioning it going forward. She gets paid per hour, and she's a manager too, so it's $195 an hour for her time. That way, when she submits a bill, we have some way of paying her. She will be going back to the school board to give a presentation to the public.
The 24th.
On the 24th at 8 o'clock.
Okay, good, because
because this came up at the last Parks and Rec. I had suggested that maybe they wanted to write a letter in support too, which everyone was like really excited. I think there had been like a past Parks and Rec not really excited about the chap line. That's not the tenor of this Parks and Rec commission. They're really excited. And there's a bunch of new members, and then Adam Glick is rolling off and we're interviewing for new. So I thought this might be a great opportunity for them to see the presentation. So now that I know that they're giving a public presentation, I could suggest that the Parks and Rec
Yeah,
committee.
and I have to tell
We
you,
didn't realize the one on the 17th was gonna be private, just them eating pizza in a conference room. We
like
thought
a-
it was
it's like
gonna
a-
be public,
it,
but
yeah, it
this
was
is now gonna be public.
yeah, it was just an informal meeting so that people could ask questions,
Okay,
you know,
so it's the 24th,
It's the
October
24th, but you know, I have to be honest with you, I'm happy to have Lee come in to speak with the, you know, the rec commission, because their concerns may be very different than.
I think they would love that opportunity. I just.
But maybe it's just looking at it from a fiscal perspective, if the rec commission was able to hear the big presentation and then she can have a meeting with them to discuss any other questions, that would be probably more helpful.
efficient.
And I invited
What is it, 8
I
PM?
invited the PTA to this and everyone else, so.
It's important that it be public, so
Yeah.
that's the public in general can also hear and
Yeah,
weigh in
of
on.
course.
I mean, I'm sure that
Of
the other
course,
one
to
was
everyone.
technically public, but not
No, it
necessarily
wasn't
easily
public.
accessible.
It's public, of course, yeah, it just wasn't taped, but people don't really know about it, but technically people were allowed to go.
But it's not noticed, is it?
I think they do notice me.
Alright, so
work
10:24
Yeah.
at 8 PM, I'm gonna tell all the members of the Parks and Rec committee, and then if they have follow-up questions, they'll have an opportunity to
So
ask.
Jill,
High school
when-
auditorium.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we should think of all the
So-
other groups who might wanna go.
Jill, when we notice, cause it's after our town board meeting, which shouldn't be a very long town board meeting, it looks like. So, yeah, I know, knock on
She
wood.
said it out loud.
Knock on wood, so if we need to start a little earlier even, yeah. But,
The
but,
24th?
yeah,
Wait,
yeah,
it's on the
next
same
Tuesday.
day as our
Yes.
town board meeting?
yes, so
Yeah,
it's
that-
at,
that
it's at
usually
8
doesn't
though,
Well,
so-
no, so forgive me, the Board of Ed meeting starts at 7, there is a Roaring Brook School presentation that day.
Okay.
So Lee was going to be on after that, so I think that 8 o'clock is a best guesstimate.
Okay,
So but when we notice our meeting, I'm assuming potentially more than 2 people on the town board wanna maybe go over there and hear what's happening.
We can go with
Does
that.
it?
They can,
We don't, are you worried about open meetings or?
Yeah.
Well, we're members of the
Yeah,
public.
Oh, we
Yeah.
can go.
We're not going as an organization.
I think-
to open meeting.
No,
We
but
can
we
sit
might
separately.
discuss
We're not gonna
business.
discuss it.
We might if they have questions or something.
Okay,
But
well,
I don't know.
right, we
Well,
might have,
we
we
can
might
find
have
out.
to
We
decide
can
that.
find out from council, but I was just thinking we can say that this is happening afterward.
yeah, but we could decide
Question
that
on
just
the chat.
one of us will answer, you cannot be the one to answer
Yeah,
their questions
true.
and we don't have to have a discussion.
That's true. So anyway, if people wanna go, we should consider if we, right now, the agenda looks okay, but if we need to start earlier so that we
yeah,
can
I
make it
think
if
we were
anyone
gonna
wants
do
to.
a meet and greet for the beautification advisory board,
Yes, on the 6th?
yes.
No, we're saying on the 24th, it's
Yeah,
on
at
the
6.
6th. At 6 or on the
At
6th?
Oh.
Or maybe that's not a good day to do that, we don't wanna rush them.
It's not November 6th.
No, yeah, November 6th was our BAB meet and greet.
That's a
No,
Monday.
that's,
Alright, I'm getting
We
very
have a meeting
no, but
that
that's
day.
a Monday, so maybe that's yours.
That's
but-
mine, yeah.
No, to meet the town board though.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
We're having our
Right,
first
they have
official.
Oh, yeah, no, this is just like everyone's been,
Yes,
We'll
okay.
meet
you guys
What
interviewed
day, what day are we
everybody.
saying that's
The
gonna be?
24th.
Tuesday.
November or
October,
Next
so next
Tuesday.
week,
Tuesday.
it's Tuesday at 6.
Okay, fine, and
Just
then
to
we have
have
our
them come
first,
on like we've done
fine,
before.
I'm gonna let everybody know, but we're having
I
our
think
first
Tiffany-
official
I
meeting.
think they know already.
Tiffany,
Oh,
are
okay.
you on?
Yes.
Did you notify, I just wanna make sure I'm not speaking out of turn, the BAB, they were coming at 6 on the 24th?
The 24th, yeah, only 3 of them responded to me. I'm still waiting for 3 more.
Okay, alright, that's fine.
So that's the plan, but that's gonna be 10 minutes.
Is the joint committee gonna be up Tuesday?
Yes.
Just for a vote.
That's on Tuesday. It's not a public area. And
It happens to be my birthday, so I was.
The 24th?
I don't want cake. Don't, please don't get,
Okay.
no gifts, it's not really good.
Hey, all.
Good morning.
You really didn't want that, you just made it.
No, don't play
I
that.
wasn't, not with that.
But it won't be late.
Yes, they wanted to do it.
So what, I mean,
we're
if
on
everyone's,
It's a meeting,
Zoom,
right?
so it's
if
probably
everyone's
better.
okay to start a little earlier, we can do that and then go.
Maybe find out if.
Well, Lieutenant Rock was gonna
Find
do
out
this.
if they want to do that.
Yeah, there's plenty of.
They may not want to. Okay, gentlemen, I would absolutely say.
It's a public meeting, right? So there'll be public comment, so there's a
Yeah.
little unpredictability.
Yeah, no, I mean, we have no.
No, I was just trying to assess the potential variability.
And DNR, which is just the most unfortunate.
It's the worst name,
I know,
especially in my line of business, I know. The DNR.
they are our consultant for the equipment at the chapter, and they are up for renewal. They, service the screens, the lighting, not the lighting system, the sound system that's there.
Thank you.
Anyway, so that's gonna be on our next agenda as well, I just wanted to let the board know, evidently it lapsed, but that's on them, they didn't send us a so it's been, I think lapsed since April, but we since just told them because they had issued something and it's coming back, the problem is everybody's using a DocuSign to renew documents, and I told them to get it in a PDF, so I can share it with I'm just waiting to get it, so they're telling me, oh, it's like a 2% increase, it's not bad, I'm like, you just
Oh,
need the documents.
Right.
So I appreciate the explanation, but I just really need the documents.
So they're kind of just.
And we have a problem with the screen.
For a couple weeks, but.
I like the
We went
colors.
away.
Will not be an issue.
Do we go to this line? April until right after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
We've been on a boat where it's snowing and it's been crazy.
I was gonna ask you if you had a phone charge in there.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why that where it's from every night was no longer be working.
Yeah.
Mine didn't charge either last night.
Yeah.
Some school will be calling me about something.
That,
One of my children will need something today.
so.
Oh, and I sent an email around, regarding the county, wanted to do their budget presentation again.
Right, yeah.
They don't reimburse us.
Rejuvenating.
They don't reimburse us for
You know,
anything,
so.
not our costs. Do they do that everywhere?
I would say no.
Well, but I also don't wanna be giving money away, like when they have their meetings at Pace and everywhere else, do they not, pay for custodial staff or anything?
Not probably because it's during the day, in case probably most people in and out, I'll ask Lisa to, I don't
It's
remember
not that
getting paid.
expensive, what we pay for the cleaning service.
Lieutenant?
It is.
Good morning. Morning.
Running back up today.
Hey, how are you?
But I think if you ask, you don't receive, so if you don't ask, you don't receive, so we should at least ask if they'll reimburse us for the cleaning costs or whatever. We're not gonna charge them for the space.
It doesn't hurt to ask.
Do I have a choice, chief? We'll choose the blue.
You choose the blue?
All right,
Usually would too, but.
welcome to our police
I
department.
don't wanna go back to 2021 if we can.
Cost one.
Financially,
Well, financially, but
expense wise,
Thank you all, by the way, I put it in the newsletter yesterday, I don't know if you saw, but thank you so much for all the work you do to keep us safe every day, and especially, we had that large vigil the other night, and really appreciate all the organization that took and
They did do great,
These
they
guys did a
really
great
did.
job. I was out in San Diego and I kept like bothering them saying, do you think of this? Do you think of this? And they had it all ready to go, so very proud.
specifically
Not
called you out,
surprised.
the supervisor report
But
about
they,
yesterday, but I wanted to thank
But they still took your calls.
Thank you.
So that's pretty
He's calling again.
Kinda has to.
Good connection,
It's a
she
bad
can't
luck.
hear.
It's a bad luck.
So I think the easiest easiest way to start, we can go line by line, but if we go to like the fourth page, fifth page. I have a summary of all the lines. And it just shows you what the contractual differences from 2023 to 2024 versus the non-contractual differences. So, and then just to give you an idea, keep the non-contractual as close as we can, but the red is items that went down, the bold went up, and the other ones are just consistent.
I like this.
Me too.
It's very helpful.
Really clear. I'm a big fan of color code.
So I see the communication line went up.
Yes.
We were just talking about Nixle and Code Red and this new Civic Plus. So I know you had said you were maybe not super happy because Nixle hasn't been sending texts. We don't know what's happening with it.
Yeah, Nixle changed the way they, the way they started disseminating and building, so.
When they first started, it was a bargain. But then what happened was they started charging everybody for the text messages because from when I spoke to them, they were being charged. So their prices probably almost doubled. And now the way that they set up is if you have an email associated with your account, they will send it via email and via the app, not via SMS, because for them it's a cost factor.
Which comes back to us.
That
It's
explains
not so
Yeah.
helpful for our residents.
Yeah,
So all the community
Makes sense
notifications,
now,
all the
but
community
it's not
notifications go
helpful.
But if
directly
there's an
to
app.
email.
We gotta-
And then we have an advisory, which a few more people will get text. And then if we have a critical, then more people will get text, but we have to prioritize.
I advise people to always have the app.
Yeah.
It's called
I have
Everbridge.
the app, but I'm not getting,
I didn't know about
I don't
But I
get,
get emails.
I don't get notifications. I get the emails, but I don't get notifications. through
Depends
that.
on your account.
Next, can you sign back into your account and maybe we can take a look at it?
Yeah.
Yeah, to do it. That's actually not even the difference in the communication line, that's actually more of our contract services, or at least mainly contract. Communications line is because we have to start replacing our portable radios again. We do go through this about every 5 years. We just did that. It's been a while.
That's how long you've been.
Yeah, I like it, yeah.
I
So
realize
we cycle through this,
really
but
that quick.
that and, we do have some new employees and,
You keep forgetting how long you've been around.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Do you wanna go in specific questions, or do you wanna go back to the beginning and we can?
Oh, but my question on that was actually,
Oh,
is it something you wanna consider switching over to from a cost perspective or?
my fear is, we spent, I sent emails to 8,000 different residents.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose it, so, because if we go,
He loses that email list.
Why?
Because it's
Why?
proprietary to them.
it's provider next, I can't just transfer them over to someone
Don't
else.
we
Can you
own that
manually
email
do that
list?
No.
We have to get everybody to re-sign up.
No,
Oh, that sounds like
that's
a
how they keep theirs out of
That's,
order as well.
We
We
can,
don't own it.
but at some point you have to make the moves, we have to convince the residents if we're gonna make the change, we have to make the change.
I mean, we've made the change before, I mean, but he's accumulated this list over the past 15 years.
It's at least 12, yeah.
So you probably have to run 2 systems concurrently for a bit.
And I do like, I guess if we did one, that the one the town is going to, we'd have to still differentiate between the police and the town, because, I don't wanna duplicate the messages, right? We've different things we have to get out to.
I think in the setup for that though, Jill, do you recall, couldn't you set up to receive different types of messages? Where I think you'd be under the emergency or those types of messages? Because I thought when they walked us through the setup where you could have like informational or recreational messages or whatever.
Right, but I think their emergency messages was that,
Well, it was part of that federal system.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of that.
where they do like tower to
Yeah.
tower
Do we have another meeting scheduled with them?
Yes, next week.
So why don't I jump in on that
Sure,
and then we
great.
go from there?
Happy.
I know with Nixle, a lot of towns, I know Mount Pleasant uses it a lot, so does Yorktown, so there's a benefit in there, in their structure.
So, one other thing I wanted to ask, SROs.
Yeah.
So, you know, the community right now, we've seen a ton of emails going to the school, and I think most of them are going to the town board as well, about them wanting SROs in all the schools. Now, that is not our decision, that is the school board decision, but, I just wanna kind of be cognizant of the fact that if they do decide to have the SROs, which seems to be what the entire community wants, are there things we need to be looking toward from a budgetary perspective to providing SROs?
Yeah, yes, so right now, as of October 30th, we're going to put 2 more in the schools. Timing is going to be pretty close because we have 2 new cars coming within the next 2 weeks, so that's great news. And then all of our parts are there with cars assigned, so they're building them now, so.
Don't jinx it.
No, right. And then we repurpose some ones to the SRO, so we're gonna have to think of vehicles, along those lines. It's gonna have to think of anything from vests and uniforms and, firearms, all encompassing. Lieutenant did a budget on that last time, so. Yeah, we have to start planning for it. I don't think it would happen, I don't know, I think, I know our contract's for 2 years. And I think the school's gonna love the 2 new officers in there, and they're just gonna want to build, so. Yeah, we need to start.
I'm just, we brought it up in our joint meeting. We are getting a ton of emails, I think since, the call for jihad has really scared a lot of parents. We've been receiving an influx of emails about this. And I just don't wanna be on vacation in August where we have to talk about budgeting for SROs because the school board didn't bring it up before that. And I'm wondering if there's anything we could do, a contingency or some sort of plan or some sort of forward thinking so we're not caught off guard if this comes up, because I completely agree with you. We're gonna get 2 at the end of October. I do think that parents are going to be very happy. I think you've done a great job selecting 2 officers. I know that 3 additional would be welcomed and amazing. I just don't wanna be left kind of behind the I don't wanna be behind the 8 ball.
And look, I hope the school board is gonna be budgeting it in their budget and not come to us and say, oh, you need to pay for it all again. But,
What can we do?
what can we do to be proactive?
Well, Rob?
Well, I proactive, I don't know, we have to get ahead of the school district, the message to them. They know the cost now, we've shared that with them, they know what it's going to cost us. If you look up there at the salary line, 10% increase by adding 2 officers. There's some other increases in there, but we've added 2 officers to the roster for next year. So we know what the costs are. If we get the contribution from the school district, it won't be a problem financially to us. Ultimately there's fund balance that should we have to cover some portion of a year that's not anticipated, we're not ever, we're in a position where we can do that should we have to do that. But so is the school district.
I'm wondering if now would be a good time to ask for another task force meeting between you guys and just say, listen, we are doing our budget. You're all getting the same emails. We brought it up at the joint meeting, but let's have a real conversation about it.
Yeah.
But I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, but I think what you're saying is that we have the money to do it based on the contribution that we've established.
Well, that's what I'm
with the
saying,
school
I
district.
need to
So-
then and ask them
So
about
is there any
that.
more that we can do on our end other than to say we have the budget to do it based on the current agreement? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, financially, I wouldn't include include any more funds in this budget because we don't know.
It's
And
too contingent.
if you add something, it's a big expense. If we add something and for whatever reason don't implement it in 2024, then you're kind of exceeding the tax cap for really no reason. We could, we have money in savings. Should at some point at the end of 2024, we decide, or at some point in the year, we decide to implement it. If we're getting the reimbursement from the school district, it's gonna have a even effect. We'll have revenue, we'll have expense, and we'll be okay.
Right.
So
we
If
need
there's
to
some
talk-
delta there, we can cover it.
talk to the school board too, because the contribution they were giving is less than what
It
we
is.
would like
Yeah,
to
for next
see,
year it
and we
is.
only
Yeah.
did it because we wanted to help them to get the 2 in, and they didn't budget for it.
Yeah.
But going forward, they should be budgeting for significantly more of that contribution. And we should be bearing less of that.
The other thing we can do, Phil, is when it comes to cars, so we're getting 2 new cars in. So normally we would take in,
2 and 2, well,
Right.
yeah.
right, so normally we would take in surplus. So maybe instead of surplusing, we hold on to the cars to make sure that we've got vehicles, because I don't think anyone would get the, appreciate us driving up in a bicycle and parking it outside the doesn't have the same impact, maybe motorcycle, but certainly, not our bicycles. So just to make sure that we have vehicles, if it turns out that we're asked to provide another 3 officers that were in that position, at least for an interim basis.
That's good,
Well,
and they won't be
interim
driving
basis,
that much.
No,
On an interim basis, I could make it work too, I can take a couple officers from, a police
yes,
position we have and put them in there, if that's what the town wants, and the school district, well, they have to want it first, right?
Right.
But so we do have some flexibility as we can plan going forward, so I can make it work. It would cost a little more overtime, but it wouldn't be full expensive, 2 new officers, 3 new officers.
Chief,
That's
the
great.
money that you have here in the vehicle line, how many does that represent? Is that 2?
3.
3.
They're good.
So, so there are, 3 to be ordered next year. So ultimately, like Jill said, instead of taking the other ones out of service, the ones with the higher mileage will end up going because they're gonna sit most of the day
You say
anyway.
order, do you mean we expect to get
Well,
pay for them?
we wouldn't know.
Or
We
are
will
still gonna,
we'll
that's
probably
what we
put the
get to you.
purchase order in January, I imagine.
We
Right.
put our purchase order in January, the cars that I am hoping to get, we're gonna get in the last 2 weeks, we ordered January 2022.
that's 2.
That's the question.
And we couldn't
See,
get
that's the,
And they're not even guaranteeing hybrids until end of 2024 for Ford, so
Right,
we gotta redirect, and, it looks like the Durangos are a little quicker to come, so we're planning to go that way for next year, so, if we have the 4 now, we're gonna take just 1 out of service, right, so we're gonna, one we're gonna auction, the other ones we're gonna repurpose, so we're gonna have 2 extra vehicles, then we have more, even with putting ones in the school, and then
Well, that's
3 extra would help, so.
So the bottom line is there's nothing to be done in the budget, in this budget process, and we can handle extra SROs with the resources and,
Yeah,
the financial resources that we.
Yeah, like I said, I would expect the school to have some contribution, if not a full contribution, some contribution, and we would manage the delta, whatever that would be.
So we're prepared,
We can do it
is
on
what
our,
we're saying.
we can do it on our, yeah, we
Perfect.
even with this budget, it'll be more cost to the town, just to do it to somewhere else, more overtime.
Thank
Because
you.
that's also from control.
Just wanna make sure we're on top of it.
Yep.
We've been ready.
yeah,
Perfect.
I mean,
Thank you.
we've already made the concession where we really wanted hybrids. We ditched that because we couldn't get them, so we just went with straight gasoline powered cars, just so we have something, so we're hoping that our ordering will be better.
Well, our rate's fine, I'm hoping that the supply is gonna be better.
All right, thank you.
Any questions on the police budget, then do you wanna move on to the civilian budget at all?
Yeah, quick question, the ratings that you guys get, the equipment that you get, is that the same as what they get in the county? Is it a different provider?
It's on state bid, I don't know if we have the same exact portables, but we share frequencies. There is a one out there, but down the road, which I consider the MTA has committed to funding all the costs of all radio systems, and it's a system that works in all different buildings. The problem is they won't do the equipment, it's very expensive, each portable is $5,000. and it's just a whole overhaul, so that would be something that we'd have to plan for long term. But right now,
Can you say that again?
the MTA police have an infrastructure that developed for radio systems for law enforcement that other municipalities are joining on, and they say it's point to point, it's much more effective than, you know, spots in town where there isn't great service. And they say it's taken away that from off the table, so your service is not gonna be a problem. They're gonna do the maintenance and the, you know, and all the upgrades and the cost of it, but we have to buy all the equipment. So we're working for everyone, the base station, it's quite expensive.
How many
But-
radios do we actually have?
One an officer at least, portable.
One an officer regardless of on duty or not, or one, they use like
Everyone has
37?
everyone has their own portable radio.
So it would be 5,000 times 37?
I mean, I would think it would be, right, we could do that differently, like we could start with 10, you know, and then the guys working, going out, but.
That's what we Sam works.
Something I can talk to, and it's recently just come up, and I talked to the chief staff.
Yeah, we have a little conference.
Well, that's something I'll have to plan for.
And how long would those radios be good for? I'm trying
I'm not sure, I just at the beginning stages, I just maybe think of it and bring it up.
I mean, cause they can't be obsolete in 5 years. And you know they will be, because that's how technology
I was just
works.
gonna say that's tech. But I mean, perhaps,
Let's see, maybe
perhaps
as
the
more
equipment
people
isn't
sign
enough
on, the
and that
costs will
that's
come
gonna be
down, who knows?
which they're committed to as well.
That's not,
You're not
can you do it?
not mandated to,
5 years.
But let's see, maybe the price will
Yeah,
come down.
no,
as-
yeah,
you know,
I'll get some more information for, not
Yeah.
talk about Rob.
I'm not doing it this year.
no.
Yeah, five is really the minimum that you would do a capital.
Okay.
Sometimes we fit it into operating, yeah, but you could go either way.
All right, civilian,
he's so
Civilian.
chill about it. He's just so chill, he's so
Cause
chill.
he knows we'll probably figure out a way to pay for it, but just, you know, doing Rob's pain on the.
So we have civilian line, I have the community service worker and my assistant Dina, who are both full-time employees. And then we have the animal warden, Aaron, who's also a full-time employee now, he works now 12 to 8, he's out there doing our traffic again for Woodburn and Greeley, which I know the residents love. And little overtime for him, Dina's the only one who gets longevity. And then I have part-time positions, we've just had a very hard time filling them and keeping them, so we are looking, but it seems to only last, but we're getting everything done, now we are. So the actual cost is gonna be less because we haven't even filled those positions, you know, and maybe even we have one position for 6 months at one time.
I have a
So yes,
question
it's gonna
about
go.
the animal warden, and this may be really off topic, but a while ago there was a real coyote problem around town, and I'm just wondering.
like
with that-
years ago, you mean?
This was, yeah, but obviously, you know, there's some, I'm just wondering if that's still an issue it's quieted down, but is it still
Yeah, I think
something that's going on?
it's interesting, I happened to see on Facebook, somebody posted one like the last couple of days.
On West Way.
Yeah, it was me, so that's
There's
the
one
first
on my lawn.
That's the first one that's come up in a while. I think what's happening though is they're still there. I think we're better educated. And we, you know, we have those whistles and we tell people, you know, how to harass them, really, you know, spread, you know, boat horn, the whistle, spray them with water. I think overall they're there.
They're still there, I'm
They're
just
still
wondering if there's less fear and less,
There's certainly less calls to
encounters.
us, less encounters, but we're not getting reports that we have.
We said coyote track maps, we said that.
Yeah, we had a coyote tracking map.
We had a really expensive coyote tracking map.
And we had a couple speakers come in and do some education, and that was great. And if anybody calls on them, the desk officer does have to have a safety board and explains information as to how things are proceeding. And, you know, if there is a problem, we do have the animal warden to go out and help. And we've trapped them in the past there. When they had one, there was one up by an old farm that was taking dogs for one, so we trapped that one. Yeah. Little dogs.
Not my dog.
Not your dog.
Chief, do you wanna mention the difficulty you've had filling those civilian positions and what we're trying to do with the group changes that's proposed in this year's budget?
Yeah, so, well, the part-time has just been, it's hard to get people who wanna come to work. I think every career's experiencing it, so it's hard to get, people that come and stay and then, they get a full-time job and they move on, so it has to be a certain person. Like we had Drew here for years. I remember Drew was retired and, came here for 3 hours a day and was very good for it, so it's a niche we have to fill. Part of that, though, we've also
Is
lost.
this something you want us to advertise? Like, we can put it in a newsletter too.
The newsletter would be great, we do advertise it, and word of mouth has been helpful, but maybe that'd be great.
Yeah,
Okay.
but
We can
we
work on
need
some
like
of
a
that.
little description of what they do.
That's great, maybe
Let's do
we can
that.
talk about that. And then we've had some really good civilian employees that we've had over the years, and we've lost them because our pay was on the lower end of it. So I met with Bill and Rob, and we have two really good employees we like, and we're changing the group on them to make the position something they want more. Maybe they'll stay a little longer. So. Thanks, Ray.
Okay.
And then the contractual service, that's the SPCA, that's we paid, John talked about. There's the fleet replacement plan, which is kind of, aspirational, fluid, because sometimes things happen in cars. One time they came both, but there's a separate issue. So with that, you can see some of the yellow ones, those are the ones we've designated to either become an SRO car, and one of them we're planning on getting rid of, which is the R45. And then there's still that $10,000 line.
Yep.
That it's kind of under us, but I think it was started under Rob Greenstein, and it was printing and publishing, department supplies, especially when we were really hot on doing distracted driving. So I think I'd like to get that program going again next year. So we just talked to the traffic officer about increasing cell phone enforcement. So that's been there forever, and we've actually used it for other purposes during the year. I'm not Rob, I could use this, and he's like, can we grab it from there? And he's been very flexible.
Yeah, we've been buying some of the portable signs and some other traffic enforcement.
Yeah, I think we just want radars with them.
Yeah.
So are we gonna reinstitute the speaker
I'd
series?
like to try to do that again.
Is there a line for that?
Yeah, well,
that's
that's
all-
what we're
that's
talking
all-
about,
that's
yeah,
under all
it's 30-10.
And when we haven't used it, we've been,
Right,
repurposing
we
it.
get to this point in the year and chief says, okay, we haven't used it for anything, can I buy radar units or a mobile sign or something?
Our radar feedback on signs, which everybody loves.
Loves, yes.
Every once in a while, their road. Oh, yeah. It's except when they're blocking your driveway, your view, right?
I think that one on Hardscrabble with the red and blue lights flashing.
Chief, along those lines, I received a number of complaints recently of wonderful drivers who are passing the stop school buses, and apparently a grandmother and a kid almost got clipped the other day right by Farm Lake around there. Is there anything we can do from that type of education perspective? I mean, no, we're not gonna have an officer following the bus around.
We actually
But-
do during the beginning, in the beginning of school years, a lot of times we do, start out by following them around, and we can certainly pass it on to our traffic officer.
Yeah,
How will we know our residents?
I don't know
We've received
who
the
it is,
complaints
but-
too, and we've been out there trying to address it,
Yeah.
but nobody's gonna do that when they see a police car around,
right,
so.
We need help from, honestly, maybe that's the education part, is the bus company, the drivers, they can get the plate and identify them, and follow up with us. If you hear it, it's not, I need to hear
I
it,
know for the
right?
back,
Okay.
do they have one that go at the front?
So I know that, well, for example, I know the one, in that serious accident, they had a camera facing out front, so I'm not sure about ours, but I think it's a conversation I can have with Sam.
okay, yeah.
So, yeah, I love that, when things go to you, they need to come to us, that's always it, so. If they're, please just email us
Please
directly.
report this to the police department.
Yeah, for a while ago, there was a lot of talk about putting cameras on the school buses, like the stop arm cameras. There was talk about funding for that, obviously it's a new.
And And also that
investment, but
because-
I don't know whatever happened with that. Have you seen that happening
I
in other?
I know that when we had a serious accident on Lake Road, they had a camera, we got the camera that was pointing out.
But it was a
So,
dashboard facing out,
Yeah.
so it's inside away from the elements.
Right.
No
I
camera
don't know
on
that
that
Seth
arm.
has it. That would be
It
helpful.
would be on the arm.
Yeah, I've been
Yonkers
hearing
has it
about
now,
that.
where they get have they just implemented this year, they have it on their school buses, it's almost like a red light camera
Where is that?
in Yonkers,
Yeah.
but they fall under different guidelines because of the city and the size of the.
They're run by the city.
Yeah. Is it like a dash cam or it's on the
No,
arm?
it's like on the side, it was actually on
Really?
there's 12
But there is
so-
a program for that, and there are companies who do that. It's just a matter of paying for it.
So like when the vehicle stops, the camera comes on, it's
Yeah.
not on all the
Yeah.
time, but yeah.
And
Must be flashing.
most importantly, it's a deterrent.
Yeah.
Yes, you want to catch the people who do it and have consequences, but if people know, they will definitely not
do it.
Not do it.
Yeah, well, we'll reach out to Seth, see what they have.
I just don't know if they fall under different guidelines, because we're a town, and they're a city.
Right.
Like, they can have red light cameras, we can't have that here, same with speeding, that's only in the city, so we'd have to look into it, but I can do that.
So, a resident, a little bit off topic, but same thing with the camera things, a resident, called up very annoyed at the lights at Reader's Digest.
Yes.
Complaining that they had been caught for 8 minutes and then 12 minutes. And I don't think people understand that with the new camera, with the new lights that have gone in, that they are synchronized with the railroad crossing.
Like you're talking off the Sawmill Way.
Yeah, so that if a
Train's coming, that light is not gonna turn green. Yeah, if the train's coming, the light won't turn green, because otherwise people are stuck in the middle of the,
Certain times of day.
And they're thinking that there's something wrong with the light, there's nothing wrong with that light, it is synchronized
I'll
with the trains.
remind
Yeah,
people.
this triggers every few
Concerned
years,
about
you know,
that.
people forget about it, new residents coming, and they're like, oh, what's so wrong with this, but you're right, it's all.
Yeah, they just,
do with
yeah, right.
Because otherwise people are stuck in the middle of the Sawmill River Parkway because you can't.
Yeah,
go on
sometimes
the
the
train tracks. So it's a timing perspective, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the left lane backs up into the traffic.
Without
Exactly.
Not often,
But yeah, definitely there,
but we see it.
there's a window in the morning, like between 8 and 8:30, that there's a ridiculous number of trains that go by that
Yeah.
intersection.
The afternoon, the early.
Stage there?
Um,
Because I don't see it that much, but I have seen probably in the past month, maybe 1 or 2 people do the scoot up, like as the lights come in, they still shoot across. Not that frequently, but I know when the police are there, the MTA is there, it's.
Sometimes.
yeah, they don't normally let us know unless it's doing, it's like an informational thing, we're handing out pamphlets.
They don't do it when MT
I mean,
police are there.
we're there a lot
No,
more.
I know that, no. Oh, yeah, of course, that's my point.
We respond there a lot faster for any issue, you know, the arms being down, we can always get them, not always, but 95% of the time be there before them, so then they would come relieve us, but no, they don't want us knowing they're doing enforcement. And they can have one guy in the whole, you know, bottom line, you know, from you know, the city on up, so depending on the floor.
And on the same sort of thing, but way different.
It's just education, you know.
You had shared with us, or me, some of the phone calls for the leaf blowers. Has it been, the number of calls you've received, is there anything astronomical, what kind of numbers you see?
It was not very many at all. I shared the numbers with you.
It was like 1 or 2 ago.
Even with the new email system?
Yeah, I think we still got more calls, but they might have had 15 emails, and I got a bunch in the beginning, maybe a total of 30 overall. I'd have to look at the email that I sent you, but it was not a big increase that people expected.
And what was the response in terms of what you're doing again, just because I've gotten inquiries from the SAB and people were concerned about it. Are you going out, who's going out, is it from another department?
If it's during business hours, and they send an email, then it goes to the building department, and they handle it from there. After hours, they call us, and we go out and handle it.
If they call during hours, also go to the building department?
Yes.
Yeah, so Tom will go out, but he's out doing inspections,
Right,
he's
of
out
course.
doing whatever,
Or
so that
emails.
when he gets there.
Right.
Yeah, and he has said that he would do door hangers And there's a conversation with council as to whether or not Tom would be in a position to issue a desk appearance ticket. But again, the question is, who is that desk appearance ticket going to? The guy who's working and has the backpack on? We're gonna fine him $50, or the company, the homeowner who is.
Didn't we address that?
I thought we talked about that.
Didn't we say it would be both?
Both.
I can't recall exactly, but
I feel like there was never a firm position. I think there was difference of opinion that it was gonna be up for further discussion. The town can issue, I mean, the town, where's the ability to get designated, somebody can issue.
Right, the question is whether or not the statute had to be changed at all, and it does have to be, and whether or not it has to be changed to allow homeowners to be ticketed if that's the direction the board wants to go in.
I think that's the only direction, because frankly, the homeowner is the one who's directing the landscaping company, and they have the ability to fire the landscaping company if they continue to receive tickets and continue to use leaf blowers. And they're the ones who shouldn't be turning their back and saying, "I just do whatever you want." I think it has to be the homeowner.
And that's fine, I'm telling you, after our warning, we show up, we give a warning, we don't usually return to the same house.
Right.
They get it, you know,
Right.
I think it's just gotta be buy-in or.
Yeah, look, I directed my landscape company not to be using them during the times that they're not allowed to using them. But the SAB should do door hangers, they said they were going to, they really should do that.
Thank you.
Any other topics? Lieutenants, you have anything?
All right,
Thank you, everyone.
thank you again for everything.
Thank you, Dennis.
No, not really, I would just say that, you know, we talked about the, ambulance.
Yeah, so I didn't share with the board, the whole board, the correction on the numbers, so that was my mistake. I spoke with Al Kim yesterday, who is executive director of Westchester EMS, and he had some clarifications for me. So the additional $62,000 that I had reported to the board would cover
For the 6 months.
Yeah, 6 months of an additional fly car. Actually included the year-over-year increase of $32,000. So it's only a differential of $30,000, not an additional 62 over what we approved.
For the half year.
Yeah, for the half year, which
And
just
most towns have already voted on for
said
the
yes.
half year.
So our consortium is made up of 8 municipalities, Kisco, Lewisboro, Bedford, Somers, Pound Ridge, Newcastle, North Castle, and North Salem. And Mount Kisco, Lewisboro, Bedford, Somers, and North Salem have already said yes. So there's an overwhelming majority that said yes. We certainly indicated initially that we would be fine with the 6 months before we do that.
So we're gonna have a
financial
resolution next week for this.
Yes, I'd be in favor of the retroactive.
So then we are in a position to do the retroactive under the
Yes.
that 62,000.
So I'll have for the board next week, just some minor tweaks to the budget that will reflect that will reflect any of the equipment either from the chief and or Ike that we're gonna pull out of the 2024 budget and pay for in 2023. May have a tweak to the health insurance line, unfortunately, as the renewal rates are not as favorable as we were hoping. And there's another couple of tweaks as I've gone through the budget and noted a few things. So that will be before the board, probably middle of the week next week, just to review. I think we just said we're in favor of the ambulance, so the other tweaks won't have, a lot of stuff can offset, it won't have an adverse effect on the tax rate or the budget overall. So that'll be informational. If you have any further questions, if you want further discussion, that will be fine. If not, we'll incorporate that in the preliminary budget.
And Rob, that'll just be like a little spreadsheet.
It will,
with the
right,
changes.
yep.
Yeah.
And good going.
Yep.
Okay, while I have the group here, so
Jeremy, can I talk to them about SAB and the canopies?
Yeah.
Just so we have some direction. So SAB has been looking into canopies for our parking lots to install solar. And the two lots, I need some clarification for them because in the 8 town properties that they gave to the company to consider, the Chapac roof wasn't one of them, which was just
silly.
Yeah, just surprising, and I don't know the reason, so I just wanted some clarification, so just put that on to the side for a moment. But the two areas that they have identified as potentially eligible for these canopies is the Allen Place parking lot, which is the one right behind Village Market, the small one, okay? And also the South Greeley parking lot, so right behind Bank of America.
Do you use any
Let me
spots?
just, let me just stop you right there. We're just starting a session where we're looking at the use of our train station parking lots, or town-owned property, which includes the Allen Place parking lot. Why would we even think about putting solar there when we might utilize that differently? To me, it makes no sense.
Also,
And
that's
it's ugly and huge.
it's a very
But
small,
proposal.
it's a tiny alleyway which is
Yeah.
dark most of the time and it would overshadow everything. I think they're better places.
And would you
For
lose
different
parking?
I don't know if it's parking per se, I haven't put it to board yet, I'm sure that plowing around those sections is gonna be problematic for us, but it's one of our tightest parking lots.
Yeah.
I think that's a big no.
I think we have to
I think
look at
that's
it.
a difficult one.
Chapac, I maybe would consider the roof of
It
Chapac.
makes a lot of sense, there's no trees around
Right,
it, it
yeah,
gets
it's like
a
it's a
ton
lot,
of
you
sun.
need like a certain percentage of direct sunlight during the day anyway, so.
I just need to understand how they made their decision.
Yeah, and I do know that the board was aware of the potential of the installation of solar on Chapac roof, because if you recall, we opted not to go with the insulation because we wanted to make sure that there was enough weight bearing
Yep.
load
Yeah.
left to be able to install.
Right.
So I don't know, it
And the parking lot here, doesn't the school district
School
own
owns
some of it, the merchants have, I
Yeah,
mean,
they're
in
always-
that district, like,
Yeah, so it's a 25-year commitment when you do it, so it wouldn't cost anything to the town, but
That sounds like it would be very complicated.
complicated for the school district, they say they can't
Situation.
enter, the school district said they can't enter into an agreement more than a certain number of years, so it's a 25-year minimum, according to the school district, would be a problem. So I think that's a no on both of those.
yeah, I just
That's
wanted-
why I was saying when I read it in the summary, it they should keep it us before they're moving forward and doing all this work.
They can't.
Yeah,
They
No,
can't
no,
move
but they
forward.
said we're meeting with them to talk about the contract, it's like before you do that and waste time doing that, we should figure out if that even makes sense, to me it doesn't make any sense. But they should look at the Chapac roof.
Okay, I'm gonna run out.
Bye.
Thank you so much for your time this morning, guys.
Take care.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else, can we adjourn?
I think we can adjourn.
Alright, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I moved to adjourn.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.